Yes, greetings once again. I know they say three's the charm, but actually, really, four's the charm as well. So I'm just going to quickly show you this because a lot of people like to be shown, just so that they feel a little bit more comfortable. If we've got someone leading the way, it really helps us, doesn't it? So, anyway, put in and reinserting a new hard drive. Here's the new hard drive with a 2 terabytes. Um, so it's actually been cloned already from the previous hard drive, and there's plenty of space on it. So what I'm going to do now is slot it in to the space and try to be careful not to hit the circuit board for this type of hard drive. If there should be enough space, enough clearance that it shouldn't catch anything. Now obviously you have to put it in this way because okay, just slowly put it in. I'm trying to see where the screws actually line up. I think that was where it was previously. Now, you notice that the screws here line up there, and then there was a screw there. Like I say, it was quite difficult to access. But if you have a small screwdriver, even a flat blade, something like this, because at an angle, you can just loosen it enough and get it out that way, obviously. So it's a bit of a fiddle, but it's nowhere near as awkward as doing from the underside under here, just to loosen these ones, which are in similar position. Like I say, once it's, because it's fairly tight in there, there is a little bit of wiggle, but obviously that's because there's no screws in it at all. What's going to happen is when I screw it down, that's not going to move at all. Now, obviously, as with any hard drive or anything like that, you do want to try and make sure you're grounded. If you don't have a grounding shield, most of us don't, simply having a part of your body touching the chassis, it makes you grounded, because that's effectively what the grounding wrist strap is doing. It's making sure there's a continuous connection between you and anything, any of part of the computer that's metal, because obviously if there was some electricity residue or something in there, or static that created a spark, you're grounded, and that discharges safely away from frying any circuits. But I've never seen that really happen, but it's better to be safe than sorry, as they say. So yeah, in terms of putting these screws back in, it's going to be a little bit awkward and fiddly, because taking them out was look awkward and fiddly. But basically, once you've got it lined up, see, this is the advantage of this type of screwdriver. You don't want it to go in at an angle either, because the threads on these are very precisely made. But you want to use it just to manipulate it into place, so that when you do finally, you might have to twist that out of the way just to line it up a bit better. When you do finally catch the thread, it should go in nice and easy. Now, you may, if you cannot do it, have to break off one of these just to get access to it, to do it straight. However, we want to try and do things without minimal destruction. Now, the advantages of having a screwdriver that's got a bit of magnetic attraction is that it can help position the screw in the place. And you notice I'm talking very slow because I'm concentrating very hard to not mess this up. So like I say, once it's pretty much straight up, this is the tricky part. You might have to put your finger in, or somehow use your finger to just start it. Now this could be bent down, like I say, if you want to do that, but I want to try my best to cause minimal damage. Like I say, the advantage of this type of screwdriver, you can go at an angle. I might have to stop this video and save you the boring bit, but if I can get it started and show you it's possible, and if you feel a bit maybe more what's the word, so that one's going in there. I'm not going to tighten it down all the way just yet. In fact, I'm not even sure if it actually stabilizes it in place. However, because I want a bit of wiggle room for this one, you might need to have to back it up a bit, as I say. Oops, that wasn't anything breaking, it was just the screw moving. I'll just move the screw out of the way so I can line up the hole again, if I can. Right, so screw out carefully. Last thing we want to do is drop a screw on the motherboard, if we can help it. Right, so that goes there. If I can tighten this one up a bit. I'm not sure it's actually clamped into anything though, or actually holding anything in place. I think it's more this screw. I think there was at least trying, I think, two ideas at once, because the modern systems, they're so easy. You literally grab a piece of plastic, you pinch it together, and it's just held in like that, and you can pull them out so easily. But this was from a time when it was a bit more fiddly, not impossible. So now that I've kind of got a good idea, there's a lot of guessing, well, not guessing, but when you're aligning things, there's a bit of guesswork, I suppose. So try and get it just right. If you can just get it started in the right way, the rest is easy. But if you got it at an angle, reverse it, start again, because the last thing you want to do is cross thread it, because it'll just make a total mess, really. And the thing about magnetized screwdrivers is, well, you don't want the magnet on the screwdriver to be so powerful that every time you move, the magnet is pulling the screw out more than it's putting it in. I think this one's just slowly over the years just gained some magnetic powers from being used a lot. Not quite, it's still at an angle. Just need to try my best to get it straight on. There we go. Oh, yes, because this piece of plastic is in the way. Obviously I'm not getting any resistance on that, it's just that in place, and that might be in place, you know. It's good enough to run things on. It's not that much wobble, at least it's not wobbling up and down too much. It won't move backwards and forwards that much. Like I say, there's a little bit of play, but basically there should be enough clearance still. You shouldn't have to worry about anything shorting out. There's actually a bit of a lip These type are not the type that actually have leg extensions protruding from the bottom, but like I say, all being well, let's have a look at, there's no components that's drastically sticking out. These things are usually made to be with slight tolerance, maybe about 2mm or 1mm clearance, which should be enough clearance. Like I say, if you want to go to the trouble of even finding where the holes are, I mean, if you have a dentist's mirror, then perhaps you could use that and somehow see where it is, where the hole is, to then try and insert it with your fingers, or if you've got a magnetic L-shaped Phillips head screwdriver, something similar to this, but I think it's, you know, if you've got that like that, if it's if it's got a magnetic head and it holds it in place, that's fine. But this one isn't magnetic, I don't think. No, it's not. It's not been magnetized. It could be, I suppose, if I wanted it. I do find a little bit of magnetic charges quite useful with screwdrivers, especially when you have small fiddly screws. But yeah, that should be sufficient. And when I connect that all back up, in fact, I'll do that now. Just make sure I put things out of the way. So just tucked that ribbon in there for now. Now, this should be the power for that one. So just make sure I connect properly. And then this one should be in the first one. I believe so. It's actually written on the motherboard what they are, but follow my gut instinct, because this one wasn't tied up with this one. I actually connected them together so I wouldn't lose which one it was, just for ease. That one goes there, and then that would go on the other hard drive that went on this that I'm putting in. Obviously I'm going to replace this eventually with a 2TB when I can afford it, but for now I've put the operating system on a much larger hard drive, so that means that potentially I can add more programs, more plugins, things like that that require going into the C drive, things like that, if I wanted to. I mean, I don't have any plans to do that right now because I've got ample going in there, and I'm much more interested in live recording than samples and things like that, although I do use them from time to time as well. They're a great tool just to get ideas down, you know. But yeah, so this will now connect back in. Just move this out of the way, just double check this now, make sure it's going the right way up. Obviously these now fit into here, so I might as well do that now while you're here, or while I'm here. Make sure it lines up, and then it's simply a case of it slides that way. That should lock it into place, and I'll just make sure that it's lined up where the screws go in at the front. Literally, so move it up so you can see it a bit. The plate should be touching against here, and it is, so it's as far forward as it can go. Like I say, that's not going to move and drop on that. So then you basically put the, if you can, I mean, I think sometimes it helps if you've got quite small hands to manipulate these things. I'm not too sure how many people with large hands actually work on computers. I'd be interested to know actually. But yeah, the ability to manipulate small pieces of computer hardware. I won't say my hands are excessively small, but I won't say they're massive either, you know, just average, I guess. But like I say, when it comes to manipulating things, because obviously I'm doing it on camera, it's a bit awkward with using screwdrivers and things like that, because I want to be able to put it in frame and things like that and obscure it with my big head. But I haven't got a big head, but you know, that's the way it goes sometimes when you're giving a demonstration, so everybody can see what's going on. So yeah, so that's now in. This was already put together, like I say before, and you can actually reach the screws on this on both sides, so why not? You know, like I say, this one's not moving about very much, barely a wiggle. If you feel a bit more comfortable, maybe tighten the screws up a bit more, if that helps. I'm not sure it's really got much more. It's tight enough, I believe, and it's not going anywhere. It's not going backwards. It's not going to drop out that way. It's not going to flap about. So yeah, that one's plugged in already. So now it's simply a case of getting the power connector on this hard drive and the SATA. Connect that there, and that goes off onto the motherboard. So you've got like your master drive, your IDE 1 and then IDE 2 going into your other hard drive. I was going to say slave hard drive, but you know, people may be offended by that these days, but that's what it used to be called anyway. So assistant hard drive may be more appropriate these days. Let me know if we need to rename a few of those things, but obviously, all jokes aside, yeah, so that is connected up, and just obviously make sure that your leads are properly connected. Some of them have little clips and you hear them clip into place. I have space here for other things to go on. And one last thing while I'm here, while I've got this off, oh, I'll put the cover back on. These screws here, you may notice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 screws. There's actually a bit here that says, oh, this could be a CD-ROM. Now, I think a lot of the time these plates are designed that to have different parts printed out and punched out, things like that. Now, it may be that you could put an internal cage that would obviously attach at that part there, and maybe it's facing this way or facing that way. I would imagine it's facing this way because the length of the hard drive is what dictates, and unless the hard drive is going to be up there plus cable, you know, maybe if you get an L-shaped cable it may be able to fit, I don't know, but as would obviously block off some of the inputs for your SATAs. However, you'd have to probably then dismantle and put things in a certain order to get access to it. And if you got an expansion SATA RAID card with additional inputs, then potentially you could put more hard drives into this. And I believe that these screws here on the front would enable you to attach some kind of cage, I think. I mean, the holes are here already pre-drilled. You may have to drill some of the holes of the same size, but at least these screws are here for that. I can't see them serving any other purpose really, because they're not actually holding anything to anything else. They literally poke out at the frame and they're not attached to anything. The frame's not a double frame or anything like that. It's just one piece it's not joined together to anything. So yeah, potentially you got a bit of space here that I guess you could, especially if you get the right cables, the L-shaped cables, L connectors, right angle connectors, which would help save on a bit of space with where the wiring is. That would give you enough space to maybe have 1, 2, maybe potentially 3. Although I'd say it's quite safely with the space that's required. Another 2 hard drives would fit in there. And that'd be more than adequate. If you wanted built-in storage, that might be a way to go. So those screws on the front could allow for that. But yeah, hopefully now everything should come back together now and work. But while we're here, one last thing needs to go back on, which is this plate here, which basically it's a reverse of how we took it off. So remember the clips at the bottom here, there's a clip here, so align it roughly, maybe if you can feel it with the force, or if not, use your eyes, and then it's gonna kind of attach like that. A little bit more awkward and fiddly, I think, to get it back on, but if the tabs are in the correct position, let's just do that again. Oh, in fact, it's a bit easier to put it straight on. Yeah, so if you put it on more or less straight on, I'm not going to take it off again, but basically you put it on straight on, that goes back on quite easy. So it's just when you're taking it off to loosen these, and then it'll kind of twist off, but to put it back on more or less straight, and that will fit back on. Obviously that then stops you taking that off, but obviously if you want to take out the hard drive again, you know, same procedure really. Dead easy. And minimal damage to the system, so you don't have to start hacking at it, getting your drill out to it. You know, it's just a way of keeping things going. Recycling is a good way forward, and there was nothing wrong with these systems. They're a durable system. It's proven just how well it was built, because it was still working. It's just that I felt to upgrade at this time. And obviously it's got more memory in there as well. It was a bit of awkward to you might have to disconnect some wires to put the memory in, because it's about here. But it's possible to slide it underneath and to align it, which is what I did. And just make sure that the pins go in the right way around, because one side of the pins is shorter, has fewer pins than the other side, and that really determines how it goes in. It should just fall in nicely with no resistance. These clips here actually will help you to seat it, as long as it's I don't know if you can see them. There's these clips here on the memory. As I say, it'd be even worse if my head was in the way, and so they would basically help to put it into the slot, as it were, when you raise it. That was part of the design, but it's just got to be aligned properly and the correct orientation. So you may have to look at it to see which way around the memory goes in if you want to expand the memory. And the other thing is to do it in pairs. Now, where the original memory slots were, those are the ones, those are the main 1 and 3, bank 3, memory bank 1, memory bank 3, and then you have memory bank 2, memory bank 4. And it's, I suppose, quite important that the memories match, and if you can, make sure they're all from the same brand, and maybe even all the same size. So if you're getting the maximum size memory that they'll take as well is limited to 4 gigabytes, and that again is down to the operating system. 32-bit XP would, and I think the motherboard as well is quite dependent on those programs. There may be upgrades, but I mean, if it works, it works, right? So you don't want to change it. If it's not broken, don't try and fix it. I'm saying that I've upgraded it, but yeah. So the memory, if possible, make sure it's in matching pairs at the very least. But if you can get all the memory the same, that would be great, because that should limit the glitches or the memory fails, things like if you've got the screen hanging a lot, that could be an issue, conflict with the memory, especially if you've got other hardware in there. I've actually had to replace the graphics card in here as well at some stage. But all these fixes, obviously I wasn't filming at the time, so I wouldn't be able to show you that, but most people know how to change a graphics card over. So that was the graphics card. It just simply goes into the graphics card slot, which is marked with a brown insert. But obviously with this type of graphics card, it does have a large cooling fan on the side, which then prevents access to one of the additional PCI slots. So those are the kind of sacrifices you would make. You know, are you going to use the PCI slot for an expansion for SATA RAID card, for example, so that you could get another 2 hard drives? I mean, I suppose it's possible, because there is a network connector, and there's also a Wi-Fi connector. Now, a lot of people these days, they use Wi-Fi to connect their computers, and it's perfectly fine if you've got a good signal, things like that. This is the original one that came with it, and obviously it still works. So again, if it's not broken, don't try and fix it. But obviously I don't require one at this time, so I'm not going to do that. Failing that, you would probably then be looking to, if you wanted more PCI slots, then you look at another size motherboard, and obviously a bigger size tower, and then you really are looking at upgrading. But in order to get the maximum use out of this, I suppose, and especially if you don't use it on the internet, and it's just something that you use, say, for music or maybe artwork, it'd be good for that as well. Then, you know, you could take out the network card, the Ethernet card, and maybe put a SATA RAID in there, so then you could expand it to have more additional hard drive space. But obviously it'd still all be limited to 2 terabytes maximum hard drive space, no matter what it is, because of the system being XP 32-bit. If you are running a different operating system on there, it may or may not work, but that all depends on what types of things you're running on there. I find it's more stable at 32-bit, because it's just used for music. So yeah, obviously when it comes to sample rate sizes as well, hard drive space kind of matters, because then you're going to be using more hard drive space, and you don't want your processor clogged up with the 64-bit or above processing, unless the CPU can really handle it. And basically it is what it is. You know, it's 2.8 gigahertz Pentium D, so it was good for the time, and I think it's still good for now, because it's reliable, and that's what you want out of a computer. Yeah, reliability. That's one of its greatest strengths, and it's upgradable, but you just got to know what you're doing, really, and take your time. Yeah, I suppose there are other motherboards, but you're limited by the 4 PCI slots here, unless there's other ways of creating that, I suppose, but not with this particular model. Yeah, so anyway, I've been talking a lot, and I'm sure, hopefully, this information will be useful to you. Let me know in the comments, and hope to see you soon with maybe a new project.